Hey guys, just before we get into it, we would like to acknowledge our podcast partners in Beyond Blue.
If you're feeling low, anxious, or need to talk to someone, please contact the people at Beyond Blue. Their phone number is 1300 224 636.
You can visit them on the website as well at www.beyondblue.org.au/get support. Enjoy the episode.
Thanks, guys.
Hello and welcome to the Lystics AFL Podcast. I'm your host, John Van Norden, and here with me for the bonus episode is my good friend, Shawnee Shaunson. Sean, how you doing this week, mate?
I am good, mate. I am dancing around in the back room and having a good time to myself, putting music in my head. It's hit the loopy hour.
That's exciting. We've hit the happy hour here as well.
How's the party going on in your house? The cat's in? They're involved?
Yeah. Well, my cat's he's just being weird. That's not surprising for cat nature. He's rolling around all over my feet because I took my socks off and now my feet smell like sweat. So he loves my sweat, which is weird. But that's cats, and that's the podcast. Really, that's why we're here for the bonus podcast to talk about cat sweats.
Yeah, that's exactly why the Cats lost the grand final, because they're too interested in John's sweat on his feet.
Come on, let's move into the good stuff. This is a bonus episode. We're recording it the same night as we recorded another episode, so we won't be covering off the mental health minute like we normally do. But we are both well. We're happy, and we're ready to talk about some trade, free agency, and sort of draft rumors. I mean, we'll probably focus more on trade and free agency, but we want to get through in a bit more of a power episode each club where we sort of see things, and that means we really have to kick it off in alphabetical order with the Crows.
Yep. We're probably going to only pick a couple from each club, so we're just going to talk about the key ones. So straight off the bat with the Adelaide Crows, the big name, the one everyone's talking about is Brad Crouch. Has said he wants to go to St Kilda. St Kilda's got a contract in front of him, and the Crows are hoping for pick 2 compensation. So talk us through, Johnny. Are they going to get pick 2, in your opinion? And if they don't, what do they do? Because obviously if they do get pick 2, they take it and run. But talk us through your thoughts on this one.
My thoughts are that it'll be manufactured so that they get pick 2. It's in everyone's best interest everyone, the 2 trading clubs, it's in both of their best interest to get the Crows pick 2. If the Crows don't get pick 2, then they match, and St Kilda have to give up something other than cash to get him. I think they'll be able to make the books work. I don't know exactly how, but they'll ask the AFL a few different times until they work out the magic number, and they'll get it done.
I disagree.
Disagree.
Yes, I think I did this. This came up on Twitter in the last week, and so the way the rules are written is effectively that they've got their secret 11 herbs and spices recipe to come up with a compensation, but loosely it's based on age, pay, contract size, contract length, and I guess where this player sits in terms of overall in the AFL effectively. Brad Crouch is a pick 2, mini draft pick 2, so effectively very high draft pick. The length of the deal, 4 or 5 years is probably what would be expected. Size, not really sure, and then how that bands it. And like you're saying, I think they'll do everything they can to make sure it's as high as possible. But there's a caveat at the end of this process that says every compensation pick has to be ticked off by the AFL committee that's responsible for it. And that's basically saying no more James Frawleys. And that's, I really do think that the AFL will not let pick 2 happen because, it's draft manipulation. It's effectively the same as if St Kilda and Adelaide were able to manufacture it, whereby they got pick 2, it would be the same as agreeing to trade Kurt Tippett for a second round pick. It's draft manipulation, and it looks bad for the AFL, and they don't want it. As much as it benefits the 2 clubs involved, it doesn't benefit 16 other clubs. So
yeah, it's fair enough, and it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. Obviously, there are some other moves that are potentially on the cards for the Crows. I mean, some of the ones we know will happen is Atkins will go to the Suns and Hardigan will go to the Hawks. But there are some other players that are also being bandied around as
Jackson
being a
Hately.
potential trade. Yeah, Jackson Hately coming to the club. What does that involve? I've seen a few people on Twitter suggesting that it shouldn't be anything more than a 3rd round pick because he's out of contract. I think it'll be a 2nd round pick personally, but let's see how that one plays out.
Yep. If Adelaide have to match and force a trade, what's the price for Brad Crouch?
That's tough.
I think the Saints have pick 15.
Where do they get pick 15 from?
They're this year's first round pick.
Oh, do they still have their first round pick? I thought they might have traded it for Brad Hill. But no, you're right. They probably kept something like that. Yeah, pick 15 probably gets done then.
Hang on. I'll just confirm that.
But yeah, I think pick 15,
pick 15.
Pick 15 gets it done. Future first plus like a swap of picks gets it done. So that the future first plus getting some picks back towards St Kilda gets it done. Sort of one first round pick.
Yeah, but just higher than pick 19.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. On to Brisbane. Obviously, Big Joey Danaher has nominated Brisbane. I believe that Brisbane has put out that they won't trade for him, which is, I think, is fair enough position.
Yeah, but didn't you think that it wasn't fair enough with Jeremy Cameron and
No, yeah, I understand that. And like I said in that podcast, it was about the Giants have become a development ground for other clubs.
Yeah. It's more about the Giants taking a stand than what is actually right to do. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, so. And to be honest, when you look at Joe Danaher, his talent is worthy of a 4 or 5 year deal, and he's worthy of good money. And without his injuries, if this happens, Joe Danaher is netting Essendon a pick directly after their pick, which would be like pick 7. And I don't think anyone would bat an eyelid at it. However, Joe Danaher has played 15 games in 3 years, which means, therefore, there is obviously a degree of reduction in value, and Brisbane is taking a risk on him. They're going to give him a longer term deal, but it'll be on less money, probably with trigger clauses in it, which will then mean that compensation will slip back. So I don't mind Brisbane saying they won't trade for him. I think given I don't think Danaher can go back to Essendon, and he is the kind of guy who might walk to the draft knowing that Sydney will pick him up or something. So, I think Brisbane will hopefully get Joey. But then probably the big player to talk about here is Alex Witherden. What does he do? He's signed until 2022.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably stay personally if I was him, because I think the opportunity's there. You just have to bide your time, and you'll be in a potential grand finalist team for the next few years. But at the same time, if somebody's willing to extend your contract further, so you contracted until 2022, that's 2 years. If someone's willing to offer you a 2-year extension on that at reasonable money, then maybe move. It's hard to know what his value is. Probably somewhere end of first, start of second. What do you think?
Yeah. I feel with Witherden, if it depend on what the club's saying to you, but I would probably be looking elsewhere. I think that his best 15 on their list for talent, and I think that he should not have been out of the side this year.
Yeah.
And really, I would take that as a slight, and I would walk, because I just don't. Yeah.
Which club? Which club would you go to?
Well, the one that stands out to me who would probably love someone like him would be GWS, given what they're losing.
Yep.
Other club would be Essendon.
I reckon the Hawks would be a good fit for him as well.
Hawks would be an excellent fit. He's a very Hawthorn player.
Very Hawthorn type of player. Can kick the ball and is pretty reliable. Like he's not super hard or super fast, but he's pretty reliable, pretty consistent, and maybe the type of player that is going to be taking the kick out for the Hawks for the next few years, the next decade, really.
Yeah, well, you think him, Will Day, and Jack Scrimshaw. That's 3 beautiful kicks.
Yeah, and they've also got Sicily, who's a great kick. Obviously, he's out with the ACL and everything, but he's the type of player when we were talking about the Hawks that we would say that they're okay trading for. He's a player that's going to be there for 10 years. So he's kind of worth it.
I think your valuation's pretty spot on.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that one pans out. Moving on to Carlton, they've obviously were big names early. They'll probably get Zach Williams as a free agent, triggering either a first or end of first round pick, I'd say.
I think it sounds like it's going to be a first because it's a pretty hefty deal.
Yeah, I guess that's the hard thing with the Crouch versus Williams deal is that it would feel unfair for GWS to get a first round pick for Zach Williams and for the Crows not to get one for Crouch just because of ladder position.
But it's not. But it's not ladder position. There's a monetary difference by the sounds of it as well.
Yeah. Okay. If there's monetary difference, then that makes a bit of a difference. But how do they get Adam Sard? That's a big one for me.
Yeah, and I guess we could cover this off. We probably won't talk about with Essendon now. How do they do it? I think they need to split pick 7 into 2 later first round picks. Geelong would be the obvious person to do that with, or even potentially Brisbane.
Yep.
Adam Sard, I think we've said, openly is probably worth somewhere around pick 15. So a pick in that area for Adam Sard is probably the right value, and then that'll give him. I just feel that pick 7's overs. So unless Essendon are coming,
pick 7's way overs. Yeah.
Unless Essendon's coming back with, say, a pick 20 or something. I think coming back the other way needs to be a pick in the 20s, which it doesn't look like Essendon have. So, maybe it's the Joe Danaher compensation pick that comes back the other way. But something like that needs to happen. I wouldn't. You either split the pick and offer a pick around 15 for Adam Sard and keep the other, or something needs to come back. If Essendon wanted pick 7, and something else, a player, maybe I've heard, Paddy Dow's been linked today.
Lockie O'Brien was talked about as well.
Yeah, I don't think either of those, like Carlton, should be okay with releasing those guys, considering they're not playing.
Yeah, I think, like for me, I heard someone say O'Brien and pick 7 for Sard, which for me felt insane.
No.
But 27, which is Carlton's other pick, and Lockie O'Brien, I'm happy with that. If I'm Essendon, you got Sard for 24. He's not early in his career anymore. He's on the back end of his career. Get a second round pick and a player that was a top 10 pick. I'm happy enough with that.
I'd want Dow.
Yeah, I of course want Dow. I just think that they won't release Dow. I think they might release Lockie O'Brien.
Yeah, so pick 27 plus Dow would be doable for me. Like I don't rate Lockie O'Brien that highly, so
Well, would you? Okay, then second question: would you straight swap Dow for Sard?
No.
You think that Sard is worth more than Dow?
Yeah. 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 I see Dow is worth probably about, Dow's probably worth around 20 to 25 in pick
Okay.
value. See Sard as being another 5 or so picks higher, at
Yeah,
least.
Dow and 45 for me could get it done. Like it's a third round pick. I think Dow's still got a lot of value.
Yeah.
It's just the amount of years that you can have from somebody like Dow if he comes good. I know that Sard is already good, but it's one of those hard ones to actually work out properly. We're going to move on though.
Yep.
Moving on to the Maggies. Maggies are an interesting one with all of the Trelaw talk. I don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, it looks like Collingwood's trying to dump his contract. And I don't know what for. Probably a first round pick or something of that nature. But yeah, he's one of our best players. So I
How
hope
do you
that they
feel about it?
not good. I mean, I was saying this earlier that I've heard people this week sort of saying that he's got average disposal and a few other things, but he breaks open games, and he's definitely been a great player for us. So I don't feel super comfortable about it. I think that if you're going to do it, you have to have something up your sleeve that I don't know about, like as in uh, you can be the club that sways Jeremy Cameron with the additional money. So you trade Adam Treloar, you get a pick, and then you acquire Jeremy Cameron for a huge contract, but you don't have to pay any picks. Like if you did something like that, or you were able to get a first round pick for Treloar, and then you were able to send out a second round pick and get Ben Brown. Something like that makes sense to me because we are imbalanced at the moment. We've got too many mids and not enough forwards, but I'm still not happy about it. I still wish him all the best in whichever club he ends up at.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see him going back to Collingwood?
Yeah, until I see anything from the club or from a rival club confirming that they're interviewing him, speaking to him, or that this is real, yeah, of course, I think that he could go back. It just depends on um, what the legitimacy of all of this conversation is. I guess we'll find out that over the next few days.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess the odd thing about it is just the silence. Collingwood's not usually a quiet club about their good players, I guess is probably the thing. So,
Yeah,
anyway, that's it's yeah. What's he? I mean, if it's a theoretical cap dump, what's his value? A you know top 10, top 15 pick.
yeah,
You
it's
know,
probably a top 10 pick. Still, like I mean, maybe with something going back the other way, if it's a bit of a cap dump. Like
yeah,
what's Gold Coast's pick at the moment? Five.
5. Yeah,
Five's probably a bit overs. Maybe five with Collingwood's first round pick going back, or five with Collingwood's future first round pick going back, something like that. But yeah, around five. He's still young enough that he's got years of good footy in him. But if I was Gold Coast, five would mean more to me than Treloar, so I'd want something coming back.
yeah. Fair call. One name I'll just throw up, and I'm not sure if I don't think anything's come out, but one that I've certainly looked at from Collingwood that I would like at the Demons, Jaden Stephenson.
Yeah, don't know what's going to happen with Stevenson either. There's a lot of players at Collingwood that apparently are in talks. I guess that's part of being a Collingwood as a club. That there's always a lot of talk, big club sort of thing. But it does seem to be a little bit of unease this off season. So I'm yet to get a proper grip on it. I think starting so quickly after the grand final as well has sort of thrown me with all of the rumors that are coming out. So I haven't had time to acclimatise yet, but I think that he'll still be in a Pies jersey. If not, he's probably is he more valuable than Sard?
No, not. He hasn't even come near the consistency of Sard, and considering the way he was in and out of the side this year, plus the
Yeah,
off-field indiscretions, I think when you add all that up, to me, he's a he's still worth a first-round pick. but I think,
Just a late first rounder.
yeah, I think probably in that, probably again that probably similar to Paddy Dow, maybe
I'll
in
tell you
between
what,
the two.
at between the ages of 20 and 22 is the best time to trade for a player because Jaden Stevenson was a um,
Pick
won the
six.
Rising Star, pick six and won the Rising Star, and has a few issues, more than a few issues, but has some issues, and he's all of a sudden worth the back end of the first round pick, and the same with Dow. Dow struggled to get to the level. He certainly hasn't been given the opportunity that requires, and he's sort of slid out to the 20s, which I agree with because the longer you're in the system, the more you do value because you're not performing to the level at that age, and it sort of says maybe you won't make it. But man, that's it. I would be going after players at that age group
Yeah,
if
yeah,
this is how we're valuing them.
yeah. I would. I mean, that's, yeah. To me, like, yeah, if I would throw the kitchen sink at Stevenson if I could get him for, yeah, like around a pick 20. Yeah. Maybe he's worth a bit more. I don't know. Yeah. I certainly feel from, like, it's kind of hard because you're weighing up with Sard, you're weighing up kind of a 26, 27-year-old who's got years of consistency, finished top three in their best and fairest, and I think has made an All Australian squad, and you're comparing him to a 21, 22-year-old whose upside is freaking enormous, but
Yeah,
has had some issues, hasn't been consistent, has games where he gets 4 touches. Like,
yeah,
it's a bit like Jake Stringer, yeah, like,
yeah. You're right.
so,
It's definitely hard to weigh up players like that.
yeah.
We've talked a little bit about the Bombers already because of Danaher, Sard, but they've also got players like Orazio, who's looking like he's probably going to end up at Port Adelaide.
Yeah, what's he worth? He's a really hard one.
He's probably he's worth more than Hannon,
Agreed. Yep. No, no question on that.
but he's not worth as much as Dow or Sard or any of these types of players. So he's probably like
Pick
a
in the
second round
30s.
pick. Yeah, pick in the 30s, late second round pick.
So Port have 31.
Yeah, that probably gets it done.
Yeah, cool. I wouldn't mind that. I mean, Port would probably want to trade 41, and Essendon probably want 26, which are the other two around that. But yeah, I think 31.
Don't know if that's right about Essendon. I think that Essendon would want their future first round pick. Uh, so let's just.
I heard they want Connor Rosie.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
sorry, Essendon fans. Sorry, it's
We're just a little bit of fun. It's always good fun with Tadora.
yeah. No, look, at the end of the day, he's got the club's best interest at heart. So you can't ever accuse him of not trying to get the best deal for the club. So just quickly on Danaher, we've talked about the Brisbane side. What about the Essendon side? Like, would you want to match and try and force the Lions? Because effectively the Lions' 2 picks are, what, 2 spots ahead of the compensation pick that
Yeah,
they're probably going to get. Like, do you really try for that?
yeah, I would. Um, I mean, they sort of should have probably made the trade last year when he was worth a bit more, knowing that he was probably going to leave again at the end of this year. But it now that you're just sort of left with it, I would force a trade and try to get Witherden and a pick or something of that nature. I would try to get value out of the trade because Joe Danaher is still worth more than the compensation that they'll get for him,
Yeah.
and clubs will want him. So I would match and force a trade, whether it's with Brisbane. If they don't want to trade with him, then keep him. I mean, Essendon will more than happily keep him, and if he doesn't want to stay there, Sydney will probably have him, and they'll probably pay well enough for him. So
Well, no,
I
but
yeah
this is the thing. So if he doesn't want to stay at Essendon, and he doesn't agree to a trade to a Sydney, for example, but he'll go to Sydney. He can walk to the preseason draft like Jack Martin.
that's fine.
Yeah. So then you lose nothing. So
Yeah.
So like this is, I guess this is the thing. Like, I don't know. It's the part I really feel.
It's what free agency should be.
Yeah,
It's what free agency should be. You don't get compensation. You
yeah,
don't like you don't get just because you managed your list poorly and didn't retain a player that you like. You don't get any compensation for that. That's bad list management. And if you match and force a trade, and the trade falls through, then it's up to you to convince that player to stay, or they get to walk via via draft, via the other means that the player has available to them to get selected. But
yeah.
the compensation shouldn't factor in this case.
I just sit there and I think that the ultimately letting players walk to the preseason draft is just like, it's like Gold Coast last year with
The preseason draft as a whole is a joke. The preseason draft should be removed, and like just there's you've got free agency and you've got the draft. And if you are not a free agent and you won't sign a contract, then you walk to the draft, the national draft,
yeah.
and any club can bid on you. That's what you get. Like it's not you get to then set your price and make it so that you will land at the club you want. Because that's what people have been saying. Hatley can do as well. Like Adelaide can just threaten GWS and just say, well, you won't sign him, and if you don't just give him to us for a generosity pick in the 40s, then we will just ask him to walk, and he'll walk. And I think that's him acting in bad faith. I
Oh
think
yeah,
that's
I
not.
agree.
I don't think that's what Adelaide will do. I don't believe they'll do that. I think everyone knows that threat is there, but I think it'll get done for a second rounder. And I think that in the future, the AFL should consider removing that as a possibility so that players that don't sign contracts have to nominate for the draft. That's how you become an AFL player. If you want to play for a club, you nominate for the draft. Luke Ball's shown that you can walk through to the draft
Yeah,
pretty
but
much to the club you should anyway.
Luke Ball had a price on his head
Yeah.
through that whole draft. So that's the thing. Like, these players, because they're not new draftees, they're off in terms of the CBA. They're off the 2 years. So it's and Luke Ball. There was really only Melbourne and Collingwood who could pay his wage that year.
Yep.
So there was only 2 clubs who could have drafted him. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's probably getting in. Look, I don't disagree that it's a really tough spot for Essendon. If I was a fan, I'd want them to match. I think they should just take the pick and move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, either way, Dodora is going to get the best for it for the club anyway. So on to the Dockers. Now, Dockers are interesting. Probably the one that is in the headlines at the moment is Jesse Hogan.
Yeah, Hoax. Interesting one.
Yeah. So obviously had a few issues since being back at Freo. I'm wondering, are they trying to get him off the books to have a tilt at Paddy Cripps next year?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure exactly the reasons why they said that they were open to moving him. What the sort of things are surrounding that. I think it's too early anyway. Like I like Hogan still. I still think that he's got huge upside, and I still think that he's worth more than he is for what you'll get for him in a trade. So
Yep.
for me, either Freo knows something, and they know that they're not going to be they're not going to be the club to fix it, or the or there's something else. So I don't know exactly what it is, but I mean, Collingwood would take him in a heartbeat. I think there's probably 10 clubs that would take Jesse Hogan in a heartbeat.
Well, purportedly Melbourne's not one of them. Apparently we've already talked to him about potentially coming back and quash that. So at the moment, it looks like it's Sydney and GWS apparently are the favourites.
Yeah.
And there was some interest today on Trade Radio from Richmond by the sounds of it. He's under contract, but obviously if the Dockers are open to moving him on, what's he worth? I mean, they cost him pick 6. They paid pick 6 for him 2 years ago.
Would you trade him in a straight swap for Sard?
Well, yeah.
Worth more or less than Sard?
Well, how bad it is. That's the thing. Like this is not on talent. This is
No,
this
no,
is
it's
on the
just
off. If you're talking about is
I'm just talking about in a trade. Is he worth more or less than Sard?
on pure talent, he's worth more. But I think he's been
He's probably
devalued.
worth he's probably worth Sard in a straight swap. Based on what we're seeing Sard's value being bandied around at, I think that Fremantle would take pick 15 and run.
I think they would run
Uh,
because I'm thinking that if they're going to move him on, I don't see Sydney or GWS parting with a pick inside. Probably the top 30.
yeah, it feels like that. But for me, he's still worth a pick around the end of the first round at least.
Yeah, you really want to know what the other issues are.
You
That's
do,
really because
yeah,
that'll ultimately set the price. Because
yeah,
this isn't on talent. Talent wise, he's a top 10 pick. But
yeah, totally,
but
totally. He's top 5 pick on talent,
yeah,
but
but whatever's happening outside of it, there's something there that we don't understand and the public doesn't know, and probably rightly so. But
yep.
yeah, I think look, if I think my kind of interpretation on it is that I think a pick in the 20s would get this done from either.
What do you reckon a better package deal? Connor Blakely, who's also available up for trade by Fremantle, and Jesse Hogan to Essendon for the pick that they get for Sard.
Jeez.
It's a two for one deal. That's a 2-for-1 deal. But say that they get a pick between, like, say they get pick 15. Pick 15, Jesse Hogan and Connor Blakely. For Essendon, that's a win for me. You get a developed midfielder
And a centre half
that can,
forward.
and a centre half forward to replace Danaher. You could even do it for the compensation pick if you get 18 back as compensation. I reckon that Fremantle would consider it. It's a bit of a cap dump for them.
If that's the case, if that's on the table for a teens pick, I think Adrian Dodoro is the new master of all trading.
Yeah, I mean it's a good trade.
It's a ripping trade.
Yeah, it's a really good trade. I would be going after that if I was Essendon because it's just the two needs. You
Yeah.
just like clubs that like if you address your needs as well for Essendon's more senior players, you sort of keep them entertained. You could really make a claim that you would actually improve Jesse Hogan fit and well better than Joe Danaher. I would say that he is at least as good.
Yeah, as
So
good. Yep.
as good. And Connor Blakely's a step up as well because he's a good inside mid. So interesting to see. The Cats obviously have been named with a whole lot of players. So Jeremy Cameron has said that he wants to be a Cat. Higgins has said that he wants to be a Cat apparently. And they have some players, pretty much all of their future that are linked to other clubs: Jordan Clark, Nakia Cockatoo, Charlie Constable, Lockie Fogarty, Quinton Narkle, Brandon Parfitt, Isava Radagalia, and Sam Simpson. Apparently, every single one of the players that I would see as part of their future team are available or being talked about.
I'm not sure they're available. I don't see them letting Simpson go. I think that Parfitt is under contract. Narkle's about to re-sign, or no, maybe not Narkle. But
Yeah.
anyway, I think there's a few guys there. So Clark, Constable, and Fogarty are all under contract as well. So I mean, look, without jumping into all of them, Jordan Clark's probably the one that piques my interest the most. I know why he couldn't get it. I can see on paper why he couldn't get a game, but I can't figure out for the life of me why they couldn't squeeze him into the 22.
Yeah.
Um, he's as you said, he's the future, and he would be better than the 22nd player on their list.
Yep.
So if he's not getting the right, if he hasn't had a good feeling out of his exit interview for the year, if I was him, I'd go chase another contract elsewhere, because I'm sure there'll be plenty of clubs who will throw down a 4 or 5 year deal for him. No issues.
Yeah. No, I'm the same, mate. I think that there's yeah, it's going to be one of the harder things for the Cats is managing all of that as well as their aging playing list.
Yeah,
So
and
the interest,
Constable's another one who I could definitely see looking elsewhere because he's
yeah,
yeah
probably worth a 3-year deal and a regular game somewhere else.
yep.
Um,
Gold Coast.
looking at the Gold Coast Suns, the Gold Coast Suns are always interesting because they're probably looking at maybe offloading some players that haven't really lived up to it. So whether it's Will Brodie, who has been talked about moving for probably the last 2 seasons, and it has not been able to get a best 22 spot at Gold Coast. Peter
Peter Wright.
Wright, Peter Wright's fallen behind some of the other clubs and has been talked about as a potential trade option. I mean, I don't know about some of the other names, but I think that definitely those two, again, another package deal for Essendon, trying to lure Peter Wright and Will Brodie. They're the types of players that they need. They're not necessarily the best players, but they're the types that they need, and that's what Essendon needs to go after is types of player.
Yep. I think Will Brodie, given he hasn't played a lot, he's probably value is 30s now, which is
Yeah,
crazy to me. But I certainly don't think Gold Coast could be demanding a lot there. And then in terms of Peter Wright, it would be a chance. It would be a cap dump for them as well, because he's on a reasonably good deal apparently. Uh, but again, I couldn't see I could see him maybe for a pick in the 20s for Peter Wright.
could you see Peter Wright going to the Dogs?
Geez, he'd be a good fit there, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's a much more appropriate player for their side than Shaki,
Yeah,
just in terms of the fact that he can ruck as well. Um, could be worth a think.
yeah,
All of the Dogs recruiters listening to this podcast have a little ask.
yeah. I mean, he'd be good at Melbourne as well.
Yeah,
So any side looking for a big key forward, he'd probably be handy. So the Giants this year, big one.
yeah,
I mean, we know Jeremy Cameron's nominated Geelong. Day is it the GWS chairman or CEO Dave Matthews? Maybe I feel like that's a
yep.
band, but
No, yeah, there's Dave Matthews Band, but I'm pretty sure it's Dave Matthews is the CEO.
okay, that's good. He's pretty much said they'll match and then force a trade. Yeah, we've spoken about this a few weeks ago. Got no issues with that. Jai Caldwell has said he wants to go to Essendon. I think it's a great pickup for Essendon. His value is a real difficult one. Obviously, only 2 years out of the draft, where he was pick 11 in a super draft, has shown glimpses of his ability. I don't know. I would think a mid-teens pick for him is fair.
Yeah, I don't think he's been devalued at all.
Yeah,
I think he's probably still worth his original pick. So I don't know whether they'll get that, but he's probably worth just as much as he was back then. Pick 11. I reckon he's probably in this draft, based on where I see it, he's probably worth anything from pick 8.
yeah,
So I don't know where he'll go. I probably think that they'll get somewhere in the early 20s, but I think he's worth more than that.
yeah, yeah. And then Jackson Hately, you briefly touched on before. I think the Crows' second round pick gets this done, which it's 20 at the moment. So,
Yep.
yeah, I think that's a fair deal there. And the good news is they obviously re-signed Xavier O'Halloran, being the third of that trio from that draft. Zach Williams is obviously off to Carlton, and they'll get a pick back for that as well. So
Yeah.
that's pretty good. On to the Hawks, mate.
Yeah, the Hawks are an interesting one. They've got a bit of an older list profile, as we've touched on, and it seems like Collingwood's keen to prize away Gunston if they can.
Yeah,
Be interesting.
it's been rumoured a bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like Collingwood's trying to get a forward to add to our forward mix, which is probably right. I think that Buckley was saying, and after we dropped out of finals, that he probably look at improving the side in any way that he can. He said probably the only thing that doesn't need to change is our backline. And I tend to probably agree with him in terms of the backline was relatively stable, and we've got lots of senior players in that area of the ground, but the forward line is unstable. So someone like Gunston could straighten us up a lot, and provide some real goal kicking power that we haven't had for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
Um,
Isaac Smith's the other one.
yeah,
So obviously Hawks have put a deal in front of him. Melbourne has put an extra year on that deal as well, apparently, and it looks like Geelong is also in the game. So don't know where this one lands, but all three clubs could do with Isaac Smith. Hawthorn probably could do with him the least, funnily enough.
yep,
Because, as we said, potential to look at people like Witherden and other stuff who might be better for your list regeneration. But yeah, I mean, I think if Smith went to Geelong, it would make a lot of sense given what they're obviously trying to do, which is win a flag in the next couple of years.
yeah, next year,
Next year, pretty much.
yeah,
And then for Melbourne, Smith is what we don't have, so makes a lot of sense there as well.
yep,
What
agree on Melbourne.
at a guess? Where does he go? There's been no
Melbourne.
indication yet. You reckon Melbourne?
Yeah, I think Melbourne have more to offer. I think Geelong have the obvious lure of a flag, but I think that he could add more value and potentially get paid a little bit more at Melbourne. So be interesting to see where he sort of sees the last 2 years of his career playing out.
Yeah, I reckon he'll go to Geelong. I reckon he's waited until the end of finals for a reason. With that, we're on to my Ds. So Mitch Hannon has requested off to the Bulldogs. We've discussed that one. We think around about a third round pick should be fair enough. Jaden Hunt is one that I think will probably request a trade.
Yep.
That's more my feeling than anything. But the big one, and obviously Braden Pruce has requested a trade up to GWS, but he is under contract, so that will inflate his value.
Definitely.
But the big one is Tom McDonald.
Yeah, Tom McDonald should move. I think that it's in the best interest of the club and the parties that are interested in him. So that makes me think that'll happen. There's enough motivation there, especially if Ben Brown looks to be moving to the D's. So it'd be really interesting to see how all of that plays out. If it's Ben Brown heading to the D's and potentially Tom McDonald is going back in that trade. Otherwise, it's a three-way trade, and one of Collingwood or Essendon are probably going to step in. I like him. I like him probably more as a key back than I do as a key forward, but I think he probably fits Essendon. If I had to make a guess,
Yeah.
Just the way of Essendon's play. I think he sort of fits that. Collingwood, I don't think he'll. I think he'd improve us. I just don't think he fixes our problem of having a dysfunctional forward line because he's not a natural forward. So we're just adding another player that's grown up as a defender or overseas and is now playing as a key forward. So that's sort of my thoughts on that.
Yeah, fair call. I mean, for Melbourne, look, I really like Tom. He's at his best, he's a fantastic defender, or he did have an amazing season as a key forward.
Yeah.
So the talent's there. Something's just not working at Melbourne. So I think for everyone, he needs to have a reset. So sad to see him go because I do really like him. I do think he's a good player. But yeah, I think it's best for everyone. So on to the Kangaroos and probably a couple of guys to touch on here. We'll start off with Sean Higgins. What's he worth?
A late second round pick, maybe, just to facilitate the deal. Maybe a third. I mean, he's pretty old. He's a good player, but he's getting on now.
Considering there was talk last year of him being potentially worth a late first round, early second round pick. It's a dip in price over a year, isn't it?
Well, he's just getting older. He's like 33 now. He's right at the end. I think that he's a star and he's still playing really good football, but it's just a slippery slope when you're in your mid 30s or your early 30s to your level of performance. And for me, I think that the Cats will probably offer a back end second round pick, and that'll move it.
Yeah. Okay, fair call. Probably the other one to talk about is Ben Brown, and I listened to our Melbourne podcast today, and I was pretty strong on what I would offer for Ben Brown. What are your thoughts? Obviously, Melbourne's apparently at the front of the queue, but plenty of other sides have thrown their hat in the ring.
Yep.
And if Collingwood were able to get involved by moving out money, what's he worth given the way North Melbourne have treated him?
Late first round pick. Still, he's a 60 goal a year forward 3 years in a row. 28 years old, mature age. When he came into the competition, you got to assume that he's got minimum 2 years left of that production, maybe 4. And yeah, I mean, so for me, he's still probably worth a pick somewhere between 16 and 25. I just don't know what he'll actually end up moving for.
Yeah, so talent-wise, I agree. But the question is the way that North Melbourne have pushed him.
Yeah, for me, it's the same. I think that he would be worth more if he wasn't being pushed, and I think he'll be worth less if there was even worse circumstances and there were some off-field things here. I think, given the way things stand, that's where I value him. And the variance in that value is how many different people are interested.
Yeah.
If it's just Melbourne, it gets done for pick 25. If it's Melbourne, Essendon, Fremantle, Collingwood, Gold Coast, Hawthorn, every other name that's been linked to him, all in a bidding war, there, and then I think his price gets driven up because of that.
Yeah.
He's out of contract, so he's negotiating a salary as well. Then I think it goes up a bit more because the salary goes up a bit more. So, yeah, it really just depends on who offers the most.
So here's the thing: a trade doesn't get done, he's not going back there. What happens then?
Adelaide get lucky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or another club. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think that happens.
Yeah, I look up my feeling is that when you try and push someone out of the club openly, you lose 10 picks, like straight off the bat.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this in another podcast. I'm not as sure on as you are on that one. I'm more than comfortable to put that down to it. I don't know and move on to Port Adelaide if you are.
Yep. So there's not a lot with Port at the moment, but Sam Hayes is one I would really be encouraging every side that doesn't have a ruck to have a crack at.
Yeah, what's Sam Hayes worth? For me, he's worth a second round pick, but what is he for you?
Yeah, look, I rated him above Callum Coleman Jones, who went pick 20 in his draft year. And Sam went at pick 46. He's got one ACL, he's done, but his form in the SANFL before obviously the shutdown this year was really good. Port internally rating very highly, like he's under contract until next year. So yeah, I could see a pick in the 20s would be fair value for him. I think he's super talent. And
yeah,
I mean, that said, Peter Adams is ahead of him, who's also showing some tremendous talent there as well. So Port are in a very envious position of having 3 excellent rucks.
they certainly are, mate. That takes us on to our next club, who have one of their number 2 ruckmen, one of their 1 and 2 ruck punch in the Richmond Tigers, injured for the year. So I don't know if they're looking for another ruckman to support Nankervis, especially with Callum Coleman Jones suspended for a period of time and potentially going to be traded.
Yeah. Well, obviously Nank should get re-signed pretty quickly if he hasn't already. But yeah, Callum Coleman Jones is a really interesting one. I think, unlike Hayes, his value's dropped. Although I think yeah. So what's he got? He's got a 10-week suspension. So it's a pretty hefty suspension. But aside looking for a ruck like Sydney, he'd be perfect up there as a developing ruck.
Yep.
And I really think he could do something good there. Value wise, probably early third round pick for me would get that done. Given he's got a suspension hanging over in his head, so.
There's two more players I want to get your feelings on for what they're worth, not necessarily the clubs that will take them in the end. But Nathan Broad is one, and Jack Higgins is the other.
Yeah, Jack Higgins. Wow. Broad. Oh, he's a really tough one because the thing with Broad, he's a good player. He's a very good player. But it's a bit like I guess trying to put a value on Dylan Grimes a couple of years ago. Where you watch him and you realize how good he is, but then you also are left kind of wondering how much system based.
Yeah,
Does he?
How much is system based? And he's 27 years old, so there's a bit there to say. How much is he worth?
Yeah, so best 22. He played in the grand final, so you're probably looking at second round value. But
yeah,
I don't know,
second or third.
Yeah, something in there. I think. Yeah, he's a really hard one to value. Jack Higgins, on the other hand, obviously looking for more opportunity. Again, I think at his best. Look, I don't understand how Castagna gets a game ahead of him sometimes, but then you also see other games and you realise why. Higgins, I guess, probably thinks he can play a bit more midfield, and he's probably not going to get that opportunity at Richmond, and especially because they're really gearing up for the now. I would think his value would be around his draft pick. Oh, no, it probably isn't, to be honest.
Probably a little bit lower because of the brain injury, like a year back, but it's not too much further down. He's a pre-30s pick.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. A pick inside the top 30, but not probably inside the
top
15.
Top 15. Yeah.
So just looking, he's been linked to St Kilda, who don't have a pick in that area at all. So might be a future, maybe it's a future second with a kicker coming back, like a fourth or something.
Yeah. What do the Saints do with Luke Dunstan?
Trade. I think trading.
Yeah.
I don't. His worth is so hard to get a read on because he's probably worth picking the 20s when he's fit and firing, but he's just had so many injuries lately that you could see him going for a Dan Butler type deal, or picking the 50s.
Yeah, I think it's probably worth picking the 30s is where it'll happen if he does move. Be interesting. I think he needs a fresh start.
Yes, I agree. And look, like he could go to any club needing an inside midfielder. Really, he would do well at Essendon. He'd be good at Adelaide, or like he could go kind of wherever.
Yeah.
I don't think he has to go back to South Australia, is I guess what I'm trying to say. So
yeah, no, neither do I. I think the other player that is of interest for me is Jack Loney.
Yeah.
To see where he moves. He's a small forward, so the Dogs have flagged their interest, obviously, with a gap in that position on the field for them, constantly playing midfielders through that small forward position.
Yeah.
He's out of contract. He never really cemented his spot in the Saints side. He's probably worth a third round pick.
Yeah, at best. He's a really he's very much just a forward pocket. So it's and as you said, he kind of hasn't cemented his best 22 spot. So I think if the Dogs can get it done for he's worth less than Mitch Hannon. So
definitely.
Yeah, so
definitely worth less than Mitch Hannon. Yeah.
So if we're saying Mitch Hannon's a third around kind of pick 48 area, you'd probably say Loney you'd get done for an early fourth.
Yeah, or a future third.
Yeah.
And I've heard Ben Ronk. We've talked about Ben Ronk. I think that they should move him on, but probably the most interesting one to me was the mention of Aaliyah looking or clubs looking to get Aaliyah. I mean, I understand that. I think Aaliyah is a great defender that's been played as a ruck and as a forward. But yeah, I think that he probably will stay at Sydney in the end.
Yeah, I can't see Sydney letting him go. Port's the one that's obviously been linked, and if Port were to get him, they would have to probably give up like a Sam Hayes. So
yeah,
I can't see. I don't see Sydney letting him go without getting something they desperately need in return. He's under contract.
Yeah.
What's he worth? That's a good question. Yeah, shit. I don't know.
It's not an easy one. I think I would pay a late first round pick for earlier, personally, because
How old
I
is
think
he?
not old. I think that he would be under 24. Maybe he's 24.
No.
26.
Yeah.
So maybe like a late first round or an early second.
Yeah, pick 20 feels right. About that area.
Yeah, I still would pay more than that for him. I rate him though. I really rate him.
Yeah. The West Coast, we've kind of, I think, we mentioned in the Dogs podcast Tom Hickey, but probably the one that I really think I'm surprised Geelong didn't go after him with the Tim Kelly trade is Jared Brander.
Yeah.
I just like he's just not getting a run, and realistically, the Eagles have got one more year in Hearn and Kennedy.
Yep.
So they're probably not going to be playing Jared Brander this year.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. I rate him. I think he's a good field kick. His decision making isn't fantastic, which makes me think that they need to move him further forward.
Well, they were trying to put him on a wing, and he's
I still thought that was a bit. I mean, he's okay on a wing. I still think that he'll be better as a half forward or a full forward because he can kick the ball very well. But he turns the ball over in bad positions and he's not super quick. So if you use that skill set on the half back line, you can get goals against. But on the half forward line, it's a bit more forgiving.
Yeah, I agree,
and the skills the kicking skills are a bit more useful. They're really the only two, Hickey and him, that are sort of super interesting to me. The others are maybe something will happen, but I don't think anything will. Western Bulldogs have obviously been linked to releasing Dunkley, and I would if I was the Dogs. Personally, I think that you've got a plethora of midfielders. This allows you to alleviate your issue of playing Libba forward and McLean forward and Wallace forward and a whole lot of other guys forward. Wallace can probably stay forward, but you're catching my drift that there's competition for spots in the middle, and you can extract a premium for Dunkley given his contract position, his age, and the needs of the club that's going to be pursuing him heavily. So I would release him and take somebody else to the cleaners to get what's for him.
Yep. If you're able to get, I mean, if Dylan Shield was worth 2 first rounders, then Josh Dunkley's worth 2 first rounders.
Yep, I agree.
So that's the way I'll put it. If you can get the King's ransom, I'd take it and go.
But
he's under contract until 2022. So at the end of the day, he doesn't have to go. They don't want him to go probably. If you can get a King's ransom, you trade him.
That's my feelings as well. If they can get 2 first round picks and maybe they have to give back a second and a third or something of that nature, I would just do it and deal with the repercussions. I think it's the right move. And that takes us to the end. That really, mate. That's every single club. We did well. We covered off where we're thinking so far, which is good of us. We're good.
We value a lot of people in the 20s. That's for sure.
I mean, there's probably not many people that are worth a first round pick, and there's probably a lot of best 22 players that are at least worth a third round pick. So they're all going to be sitting somewhere in between probably 35 and 18. That's where the average AFL player is worth. But look, it'd be a really interesting off season, given how short it's been between the end of the season and the off season. I'm actually interested to see how it all plays out in terms of moves. But I'm glad that we're able to cover this as well, and we'll look to do a few more bonus episodes over the coming weeks.
Yeah, it should be good, and we'll probably do a bit more. We'll probably do a bit more analysis in the wrap up of trade period, rather than probably beforehand, because I think trade period's going to evolve pretty rapidly this year.
Yeah, I think we've said this before. We're not a news podcast. So sometimes we'll talk and analyze different parts of the news, but we're not here to report and release. So don't sign up to hear how trades went down as they went down. You got Trade Radio for that. But if you want some analysis that's not just speculation, feel free to come here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for listening, guys, and hope everyone enjoyed that. It's nice to have a bit of a chat around potential scenarios. It'll be interesting to see how many actually get pulled off. I think every year there's a couple of hundred trades reported and only 20 come off. So it'll be good. Hopefully we can see a bit of action happening and hopefully a shorter trade period for the future as well. So thanks as always, John. Thanks for all your hard work and thanks to everyone for listening.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye.
If you constantly worry that the worst is going to happen, you're not alone. 1 in 4 Australians will experience anxiety. Know when anxiety is talking. Visit Beyond Blue to start a life beyond anxiety.